Hi everybody, so another day of development here. So last video we worked on the ICBM launchers, taking the standard launcher and actually making it functional for more than just the single type of missile. It will now support everything between the micro to the medium, although we still got more work to do. One of the things we still have to do is we still have to work on the multi-block structure and actually get it kind of working in such a way that this thing doesn't just kind of shit on itself. Though before we do this, I want to go ahead and launch this to see if the code we wrote yesterday, because we never tested it, actually does indeed function properly. So we'll go ahead and launch this, and hopefully it won't crash and spit fiery flames out, because we didn't test any of the code. As soon as we do get this tested and it is working at some extent, we'll work on the multi-block, and what we'll do is write some code to simplify the multi-block code down using a for loop, and that will save us quite a bit of time on working on things, especially when it comes to the medium, which will have somewhere around 18 times 9 is how many multi-blocks it'll have. I can't even think of how many that exactly is off the top of my head. I got a calculator though. We could just do it that way. So it'll have 162 multi-blocks. Yeah, that's a lot. Okay. Yeah, I actually got asked why the on my Discord chat why the thing is marked as mature. It's marked as mature just because mainly we were streaming Arc the other day, and when I'm streaming things that are very violent, I have a tendency to turn on the age filter. As well, that usually when I'm playing Arc, I curse a lot, and I just have a tendency to leave the mature filter on. That's not saying any of the content we're actually streaming is mature or not, but no harm in leaving it on because you can just flip it through it. I'm not even sure Mixer age blocks. All I know though is that I'm pretty sure, like, I don't know if Mixers changed their rules, but I know when Mixer was Beam, they did have pretty strict rules on what was considered appropriate and inappropriate for age groups. And I know excessive cursing is considered inappropriate, although you can lightly curse, but it's like PG-13 rules where you can only get away with like 3 curses per episode or something like that. I think it's it. I know there's a little bit more rules to it, but I haven't read them in a while. But to be honest, by working in ICBM, we probably should just leave the maturity filter on anyways. I know with YouTube, I've had videos demonetized for ICBM simply because that I would be talking about like terrorism occasionally or explosions and stuff, and that stuff you can't really talk about openly. So yeah, we got this still working, so this hasn't broken, which tells me the code is still functional. Although I can't really do any right clicks. I should add some more right click behavior with this. Actually, you know what I need to also do? I need to kill all these trees. Always get annoyed by these. You know what? Let's test to see how well the medium missile works. Now, might I note these are medium missiles even though the icons are not updated. I have to fix the icons here. So let's find an anti-plant one. Okay, so here's an anti-plant. And let's see what happens if I fire this thing at point blank range. It works. Let's see what the radius is though. What is the radius on this actually? 96 meters, damn. So yeah, we're gonna have a lot of the trees just disappear in a distance from this. Let me go ahead and break this missile too while I'm at it. There it goes. And that cleans up our little workspace here. I probably should make a setting where we just clear out the logs while it's added as well, instead of turning them just to dirt. Let's see, make sure chat's in view there. But yeah, so let's go ahead and test to see if the smaller frames actually can be built. So the micro should be 1 frame, and then the small should be 3 frames. Actually, I think I need to check to see if the small is 3 frames. Let me go ahead and... oh, I forget which one we put it in. Oh, here it is. Okay, it's 2 frames for the small, 5 and then 17. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to just use this guy for the 17 one, because I think it is actually the correct height. It'll tell me if it's not here in a second. To prevent issues, clear blocks from the sides. I don't see any blocks on the sides. Let me see if these ones are craftable. Might be a bug in the code. Yeah, there's a bug in the code. So something we coded with is path clear is not working correctly. And I know exactly why it's not. I forgot to rotate the direction. So we need to go from start dot add forge direction dot get orientation side. And that should fix it. Okay. That actually work? Aha, that did actually work. And it turns into the little slanted micro block. That's awesome. Man, that actually works really well. The only problem is we're going to get the multi-block structure for like the 5 tall one. And yeah, sweet. And then let's do this guy, see if this one works. Okay, so this guy doesn't want to work correctly, and this actually probably has to do with how this is set up. I think what I need to do is figure out some way to do this, and I actually know the easiest way to do this would be to call start.add forge direction. Oh, come on, don't be dumb here. There it goes. I think that'll work because it needs a 3x3 area clear, and we only translated 1 out away from the base, so we need to translate 2 out from the base to get the center. But then there's a little bit more we have to do. Let's go ahead and look at this. Okay, so that's 2 and 3, that's 4 and 5. Okay. The reason I was looking at that is I need to do a little bit more math here. 2 or 3. Okay, so then we want to do start equals dot add. We don't want to add north to this. So say we're rotated north. We need to add or remove, I want to say 1 n in the x direction. So we'll test that, see if that's correct. And then if we're doing this direction, I think it's 1 in the east direction. That should work. If that doesn't work, then we'll just have to prototype it a couple times until we get it working correctly. Okay, let's try that again. No, it still doesn't quite like where we're at. So let's go ahead and put a break line there. You know what, there's actually, it's calling the wrong code. Okay, so actually what this needs to be done is this needs to be down here. And this one needs to be the standard height actually. Or actually no, this can be just does not equal and that'll work, it's all the same. Because this is the check we're doing pretty much a linear line up and down, and this is the 3x3. So this is meant to be the medium one, this is one not meant to be the one, and I think the medium is set to 16 blocks tall, even though I thought it should have been 17. So let me go ahead and look at this. It is 17, so I think I just need to add 1 block to the top of this. I don't even know why it's identifying correctly as the correct height, if it's the wrong height. I think what we need to do here is actually transition the errors and move this up to here, because it's clearly not the right height, but then it's trying to map as if it's the right height. Okay, so I think it is identifying correctly. Let me go ahead and put a break line here. Okay, so yeah, medium missile, so it is correct. So then we want to go, is path clear? If it actually will... Let's say it's 100 negative... Let me actually get a pad and write that down real quick, because I'm going to need to check that against to see if the translation math works correctly. I'm probably going to write some JUnit code for this later to do this automatically for me. Because one of the big things is that if this ever breaks, then somebody won't be able to craft the launcher, which is a pretty big problem. Okay, if we can actually get it to go into the correct codes. Yeah, it won't go into the correct code line because of the way IntelliJ is designed. Where it go this time? There it goes. Okay, so we got the height correct. So we got the height, so we got our starting position. And we are facing side 4, which should be east. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, oh, it's west actually. Alright, I shouldn't have closed that either. Although I do need to close a few of these. So side 4, which is west. And we are 2 blocks, so that looks correct right there. How are we centered though? We should be here in a second. Okay, 250 is the edge. That looks okay. This code isn't going to work correctly though. I just realized that. It needs to be -1 to 2. With the current methodology we're using, it needs to be this way. If we were using something else, then it would work with something else. Go ahead and change that code and then hit reload. We're going to have to run the command again though. Okay, so let me go ahead and break this stuff back here. So we have a 3x3 on all sides, and I want to see if it just places on the wrong side. Now, so it's not validating the 3x3 in any direction. So let's see what is its requirements for the 3x3. Is air block. So it does check as air block, so we won't have any problems with that. I don't see any ghost titles though. So what could be wrong with this? Let's see what block it errors out on. And I want to see where 250 is actually in regard to this. Okay, so 250 is wrong. Okay, actually, you know what? This is. I don't need to do this whole thing right here. That's unnecessary. So go ahead and once that's reloaded. Hey, it worked. It didn't create the correct multi-block structure. That's because we don't have the multi-block structure programmed. But it did detect that this 3x3 area is clear. And what we should be able to do as well with this, even though it'll look really, really funky when we go to do it, is I should be able to right-click on this. And I should be able to insert a missile in it. There we go, it's added. Now there's no render code for this, so it's not going to render. But we can fix that here in a second. So go ahead and save and quit so I can go toy with the actual code without it breaking on me. And remove the debug line. So this whole segment's done. Now we need to reprogram the listener for the render. So tile standard, tile get missile. Yeah, it should have actually rendered the missile here. That didn't work. Well, I guess we'll get to that here in a second because I'm going to go ahead and I guess just go do the multi-block code real quick. Now what we want to do with the multi-block code to like really simplify life is to figure out a way we can get rid of most of this right here and replace it with a for loop. We will have to program this. This isn't something that just is natively built into the code for us. But we'll have to go like say for right there. And then we want another segment called data. And then we're going to have to go ahead and find one of the other for loops we already have programmed in here, so I can make sure I match the formatting correctly. I believe one of the missiles has it, and I believe it's a small missile. Yeah, right down here. So we want this part here. That way I can get this to work correctly. So it starts at... Oops. Apologies for that. My dog decided she wanted to flip out. So that should be... This is 5 blocks tall. I actually think the last integer is 6 on this. No, actually 5 is correct. Because we should start at 0, so 0 should be the same height we're at. And then it should go up 5 more times after. It should go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, rather 5. 5 would be your 6th block, but it would end at 5. So that's correct. And then we want... Oh, actually, how are we going to do this? Because what we want to do is we want to replace our y value here. But I guess we'll have to do it this way. We're just going to have to add special code for it. Because there's no easy way around that. Also, why do we have a negative on the z? I just noticed that we have a z on every one of these. Oh, that makes perfect sense. I got what that does. I wonder if we can figure out a way to translate this by the forge direction too while we're at it to save ourselves even more time. Let's go ahead and figure out a way to do that. And then, yeah. So what we'll do is we'll create some way. So we got pause. Actually, this needs to go up here. So we got our data. And our data normally contains pause and, of course, data mixed in with it. Actually, we're going to change this to multi-block to keep consistent with all our other junk. And we want to go direction translated is what we're going to call this variable. Direction offset. And then we're going to set that to true. Okay. So we got our pause here, and our pause actually we can even just get rid of this. So we just have a y value there. And we got our bounds set up. Actually, I don't think the bounds even function, so I'm just going to get rid of them. And then get rid of this. And what will happen is when it loads up, at least that's how we're going to program it, it will create 4 types for us automatically for each forge direction, and it will translate in the directions we want to use. Theoretically. I'm going to have to actually, you know what, I need to put forge translated up here. So there's a little bit of work I'll have to do with the multi-blocks. And there's, yeah, this is all multi-block work. That's good, man. That cut down quite a bit of code there. And of course we're going to have, each type will have a different type of this. So right now that's the standard, so this will be our micro. And our micro is literally 2 blocks tall, so it'll be 0 and 1 will be our 2 tiles. Then we'll have the small, which will be 3 tiles tall, I think. So its last tile will be 2. Let me make sure I got the right height on that. And where's the class file for this? Standard crafting, wrapper, standard. There's a listener for this, but I don't know where it's at. There's a render listener. That's weird. We're in the launcher here, but we're missing a piece. There's crafting, there's render. Huh. I mean, I guess I can just open up a class file and I can type the name in and find it that way. So this would be, should be standard launcher listener. Actually, you know, I know exactly where that is in the class file because the code we were messing with is actually part of a block. Yeah, it's a launcher part listener. To be honest, I probably should just go toss this stuff down with the launcher package. I guess it is all in the same spot, so it doesn't make it really matter. So yeah, it is 2 blocks tall. So we'll go ahead and mess with this then. So that'd be 0, 1, and 2. Cool, so that's good. And then we want the medium. And we lost all the viewers. Bummer. It's a problem with coding. This is 18 blocks tall. Now with this guy, this is where the fun begins, because you're going to technically have multiples. And we want to loop the multiples. So we have 2 options. Either we create another for loop system, or we just replicate the for loop repeatedly. Now I don't want to do the second option because I'm a lazy programmer, so therefore I kind of want to make sure I make the work as easy as possible. So we want to come up with a new solution. So this would be tiles, and we're just going to have multiples of these guys. So we will have nested for loop. Actually, can we do nested for loops? Yeah, we can do nested for loops. I'm just thinking in my head how the hell I was going to do that. I have an idea. We'll make the code function. It's just I'm going to regret it. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Because how we got to do this is we're going to have to name our variables. So this is going to be ID y. So what then you want to do is we want to come down here and we want to go, okay, that's what our variable is. And we want to repeat this for each of our for loops, so that way we have this nested system in order to make our stuff function. Reality, what we're doing is we're recreating Java code as data. And I'm going to get yelled at by somebody for doing this, because they'll be like, oh, that's not how you're supposed to do it. It's like, I know that's not how you're supposed to do it, but this is the way we are doing it. So this is always going to be called Z. And then what this will be is we'll have a value starting at -1 to 1. I think that'll be the easiest way to do this. I need another variable here. Direction multiplier. And the multiplier will be 2. because we actually have to go 2 blocks out from the tile in order to get this to work. But yeah, this is going to be a mess to program though. Because essentially we have repeat for loops. And actually, you know what? I don't need that. I can remove that line. Let's go ahead and space these out so they're readable. So 3 for loops in here. Yeah, that is really going to be a mess. Oh well. I guess we get to program it though. So now we want to go and find our previous multi-block loader. Which I got to find here. So there's the listener. And then we need to find the structure. So here's the layout. There's a handler. I need to find the loader, which I'm going to say is probably in the JSON package. Should be down in library, JSON, processors. Yeah, right there he is. Okay, so our current system doesn't support the for loops, so we're going to have to make this happen. So let's see. Right now we can load via a JSON array. We got our object. Here's our key. Let's get object. Validate data. Okay, so we got our process array system. So with our process array, we still want to continue to support this object system. But now when we get down to this part, we don't want to ensure that pause is there anymore. We want to go, okay, if the object is a pause, so we're going to go if object dot has, and you want to call it pause, then that way we can load up our data here. And then we want to create some kind of system for this too. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. So protected, and then we want, I guess we'll do void for this. So protected void, create pause, and then we want to pass down a JSON object, and then we want to take this whole piece, put it down here, and then we want to pass down the layout. So multi-block layout, and then we can just go create pause right here, and then pass the object in. At least I think we can pass object. Why isn't it? Oh yeah, because I need the layout too. And I got a message on here. Yeah, I got told I'm double promoting Twitter and Mixer at the same time. I'm okay with this. So let's see. That's going to create that. So now we got to detect the for loops. Now we want to go else if object.has, and then we got our for loop. So then we wouldn't need a handler for loop, which is going to be a pain. And we're going to have to handle our for loop via recursion. So do for loop. And I guess we just want to pass the object in again, because there's really no easy button for this. You just gotta have to pass stuff around until it figures what's going on. So do for loop object layout. And then we want to, I guess we want to detect for certain values. Actually, I want to go ahead and copy something from another one of our JSON processors to save myself a little bit of time. So client, JSON, render, and we should have a text or state processor. So there's block, item, model, render subprocessor. We should have a package of render subprocessors, but I don't see them. Maybe the model state's got something in it. Rotation order. Yeah, the parts has a for loop in it, so we just gotta copy this out. Okay, yeah, this will work. So we copy this section, do it here. So we already have an object, so we don't need to do that. So get rid of that part. And then we don't care if to ensure that we have like something like parts in there, plus we're not even using the parts variable to start with. We want to detect if we have a pause or if we have a for loop. So I'm going to go, yeah, just grab these two actually. Don't even need to do anything else on that. So we're going to create pause. The only thing is when we go to create the pause is we can't just toss the pause down to here. We actually have to manipulate the data. We're going to have to copy it and modify it and twist it around. Also, we need to throw an exception if we don't have anything else here. So throw new illegal argument exception. Loop was provided without data to create. That'll be the easiest way to do that. And then we can pass up here at the same time. And we can go, okay, unknown entry and multi-block array. So that'll work. So we got to manipulate the pause object. This is where things get interesting. Because what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to provide a hash map. It's going to be string integer. This is how we're going to keep track of our loop state. And we'll pass the map down, of course. And then what we'll do is right before it loops, so if we do have a for loop, so we're going to go, okay, for int I equals start, I is less than equal to end I plus plus. And then we'll go, okay, map.put, and we're going to need a key value here too. So yeah, so we'll put a key here. That'll work. Okay, key. Actually, what did we call that variable? I don't think it was called key. It was called ID, yeah. Although basically it is a key system, so I could have called it either way. We got an ID there. So this will more than likely probably be null in some cases. So we want to go if object.has ID. If not, then we just want to call it numbers. Or number, I think is what it's called. So yeah, it's called, yeah, number by default. So then we'll put key and then I in there. And then what we also need to do is if you detect more than one for loop, the key should be mandatory. So we'll go down here and if we detect another for loop and go, okay, if object does not have key, then we'll specify that you have to have the key or it doesn't work properly. Repeat for loops require ID be provided for each loop to iterate correctly. Because to be honest, if you're making multiple for loops and you're not providing keys and you're not using the keys, you're using the for loop wrong. So that'll work. And then we'll put the key in there with the I value. That'll be passed in. Then when we do hit the pause at some point in time, we'll just need to, I guess, copy it and edit it. It means this is going to be repeatedly done, which is going to be a little bit of a waste, but I can't think of an easier way to do it. We need to copy the pause object. I'm trying to think, I've done this before. I think the model state processor actually does have something very similar in here. So it's got the parts object here, but there should be a for loop used somewhere else in here. I think it might be in the texture system. Maybe it's the item state processor. It extends the texture state. Maybe it's in the super here. Texture IDs, no. It's not that. Render JSON processor, maybe? Yeah, here we go. So we have a template system, and then we create a new object, and then we basically copy the object. So we want to come back in here, new object, and we want to get our template. So our template is going to be essentially the object. Let me take a look at what we're doing over here with the standard system. Actually, we're looking for tiles. Oh, no, we're not looking for tiles. We actually are looking for pause. So pause is down here. We're actually, this is handled wrong. I need to do something like this. And the reason I need to do this is because we left out some important segments. It's not just the pause that's in here. Each multi-block also has a data override and a few other things that can be specified. I wish I had another multi-block too. Actually, I can go look at the silo, I think. If I can find the correct package here. I guess we don't have it in here. Because you got this. This, by the way, is another example of where this for loop would be really useful, is to get rid of a lot of extra code. But I guess we'll go with that. So we, instead of looking for pause, we are looking for multi-block. Make sure I spell that exactly the same, or else it'll fail to load. Yep, that looks correct. So we are looking for multi-block, and that means we are looking for... In this case, though, we are actually looking for a pause, because if we go back to this guy, it is specified a pause here. So this would be your object, which would be read in. So when we see object on this line, that's what that is that highlight back there. But in our case of a for loop, we're looking for the multi-block variable. And we just want to pass out a new hash map for that. That'll work. So we're looking for the multi-block section. And then we need to make a template. So our template is actually going to be there we go. So we got our template, we got our start value, and then anytime we find a JSON primitive, we want to change its values. This is going to be a little tricky because this loop I have isn't going to work. We need a recursion loop. And we'll go ahead and just grab this, and then I'll figure out what data I need. So I need the template, and then I need my return object. And then I'm going to need that hash map. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go, okay, if s.contains a %. We actually need regex for this, to be honest, but I'm not going to screw around with regex right now because it'll take me probably the next 20 minutes to get right, and I just don't feel like doing that. So we're going to, actually, we just want to do this. Do that, that'll work. So one thing is we're trying to copy things, so we want to make sure we're always copying the value, but we only want to edit it if we find a % in here, because after all, we're using our key system as like that. And then I want to do something like that. And we want to do another for loop. We want to go for, yeah, we'll just do the same thing we're doing up here. Except we're going to have to change our variables, of course, so we can't just copy and paste this directly. But put an E here, and this will be an integer. And then instead of this being template, this is going to be map. And we'll just loop through the map, and we'll replace one key at a time if we find it. It's not the most efficient way to do this. It's definitely not the best way. But it will sort of work. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but it'll work. And then replace that with e.getValue. And that should do the trick. So then we just want to call yes, if it's JSON primitive, we're good. Anything else we just want to add back, but we actually want to do another case here of kind of recursion is a way to put it. So I'm going to go else if entry.getValue is an instance of a JSON object. Which there shouldn't really be that much values in there, so there's only going to be a data object and a pause object, but in case I change in the future, I want to make sure there's more available data as possible, and especially in case of another mod comes through here and wants to do their own thing. But then we got the JSON object, we then want to go and recursively modify this. So we want to make another JSON object. So JSON object equals new JSON object. And we want to get our template, so our template's going to be entry.getValue, then the object, then the map. Okay, that's JSON object. And then we want to just add our object back in here. So we get entry.key, and then we get the object. And then we're not going to handle anything else, but we'll go ahead and leave some to-do marks here. So go to-do, handle arrays, and other types. But we only care about the objects and primitives right now. So that we should be good then. Yeah, that'll work. So then we want to come back up here and we want to go, okay, replace values, template, state, and then map. And that should work. So that'll recreate our object for us. It'll then create the pause at the end, and it should do all the work. Let's go ahead and I guess I'm just going to go ahead and debug this, even though this isn't going to run properly, but I at least want to see if it'll load, and that'll be one step in the right direction. What we got recording time right now? We're at 42 minutes? No, not doing too bad. So we'll probably do, yeah, I guess probably one video today. Probably should plan these out better, but I have no real content to develop after this other than just updating 112 mods. Or update my mods to 112, rather. I still have 2 papers to write for class, so I guess I'd probably spend my time wisely and do that instead. But the plan is here Wednesday, I'm going to try to get most of our single block mods updated. So I've literally only got a day, of course. Yeah, imagine I'm just going to be typing code out nonstop. So I probably won't get most of them updated. I'll probably hit another 3 of them up. So you've already got 3 updated, although I need to re-update 2 of them. And I'll probably do wooden buckets here tomorrow then. Okay, so we didn't actually load properly, and so let's see what we got. The legal argument file is missing start value. Do for loop. We missed something up. Oh, I know what we messed up. Object.get as JSON object for loop. Yeah, that's probably what we broke. This is where JUnit testing would come into play really, really well. So we'll go ahead and test that, see if that loads up, and then get back to working on the missile silos. Not really a lot of more work. So once we get the multi-block code running, then after that it's just a matter of getting the renders finished, and the launch code should handle itself, since it's already pretty much programmed out. I think I already got the launch start position fixed yesterday. So then we should be able to start launching the medium missiles, and after we do that, then I just got to do the stage separation for them, and then probably scale the warheads a little bit, because they really haven't been scaled out very well. And I think I'm going to increase the number of items you can stick in the medium warhead, but I may like hard code a few values. So things like antimatter, I may put a maximum limit on them. Says we're still missing start value. So we just came from that. Oh yeah, we forgot to call get up here as well. So get as JSON object. So we're passing in the wrong value basically. Run that again. Definitely should implement JUnit testing for this, as this is a pretty big chunk of code that I really shouldn't be implementing with JSON support, because I mean nested for loops is a bad idea as it is, but I can very easily see somebody abusing this to tie up CPU time. Can't imagine anybody be that obnoxious about things, but then again, I've seen some pretty retarded mods in the past. There was a guy that had a mod that literally was designed to slow the startup time by 2 minutes just to troll people. Yeah. So it looks like it's loading up though. We do still need to program the rotational offset up here. But other than that, it's doing okay. Yeah, no crashes so far. And, yep, still waiting for the game to load. Now, we're not going to actually load the world up after this loads, simply for the fact that I don't want to corrupt that world. Because even though the multi-block structures did not crash while loading, they are not offset, so they will probably try to place themselves over top of the launcher, and it would probably break the launcher, corrupting it. So we want to make sure we fix that first before we try to load up the world. Although, when I mean corruption, I'm more or less talking about it'll break things, rather than actually corrupting the world. Because that takes a little bit of effort. But, here we go. So now what we do is we want to implement these two variables here. So I'm actually just going to copy these guys. And we want to put them up here. So I'm just going to put these in comments while I program them out. And, yeah, one of these is a Boolean, so just need to grab this, put this in here. And this will be by default false. And then we'll do the next one. And this will be the multiplier. And then we'll have to program them as well. And this will be by default 1. And there we go. This also needs to be an integer, and then I need to declare the type as integer. It will crash while trying to load. And that looks pretty good. So now when we actually do this, actually I think what I might want to do, nah, there's an easier way to do this. I could just come down here, and then when it goes to create the multi-block structure, so when we go to get the layout, get layout of multi-block. So we try to get the directional one. What we want to do is, if it goes null here, we want to then recreate one for it. So we go if map equals null. We'll create it there, and then we'll return map. And what we want to do, so if it is the null, we want to grab the non-rotated version and then pretty much rotate it. So this will be, let's rename this, will be directional map. We'll have the normal map. I'll go, okay, if map doesn't equal null, then we need to go through every single value, so we're going to have to create even a third map for this. Actually, no, we don't need a third map for this. We just would take this guy and then just initialize it. And then we go for map.entry, ipos3d, string value, entry, and then we want map.entry set. If my mouse will work, there we go. Import class, and then we want directional map dot put This is where it kind of gets a little odd because I'm going to have to do a little vector math, and because we have an interface being passed in here, I don't know if it's going to be a pause or not, but we can check. So we can go, okay, if entry.getKey is an instance of pause, then we use it just flat out. If not, we're going to have to turn it into a pause, which could break some functionality, but then again, somebody really shouldn't be passing in undeterministic items. So we'll go ahead and just convert this. There we go, and then we'll go, okay, pause equals pause dot add direction. Actually, we're going to do new pause direction because we got to multiply this. Multiply and then directional multiplier. And another thing we actually do need to do with this is we also need to do a directional offset. That way we know for sure we actually do need to do this, because somebody could have where they have a multi-block that is rotatable in 2 directions but not all directions, and then you want to actually be able to do it differently here. Okay, that looks good, and then we just want to catch the pause, and then entry.getKeyValue. And then when that's done, we actually want to register it, so multi-block layout, actually multi-block layout handler register. We're going to have to make a new multi-block layout. That's something I did not anticipate. And it looks like the only thing you got to really do is just create another multi-block object and then add tiles to it. I think I can do that. I think it'll work. So I'm going to go multi-block layout. Layout equals new multi-block layout. We're going to need a processor for this. I'm just going to set it to null. It isn't really used. The processor is more or less an optional thing just to track what object created what. So we can go ahead and do that, and then we just want to go, okay, layout dot tiles equals directional map. Oh, I can't do that? Okay, it looks like I'm going to have to call put all then. That'll work though. And then we just register it, and that should function. And then we want to just go ahead and return our new directional map we created rather than trying to go through a big complex process to do it. And that should, actually looks like it returns a line below anyways, so that'll work. This should work. So let's go ahead and load this up, and hopefully everything works correct and it doesn't break. Worst case scenario, the multi-blocks generate on the wrong side of the tile, and we just have to put a negative in front of our offset, and then we're good to go from that point of view. At least hopefully I did this correct. Let me actually pop over here. Okay, yeah, directional multiplied. So we got micro, small, standard, and medium. Yeah, we're good. And then we'll do large and extra large whenever we get models for them. Although I might make some fake ones just to test them. I got some actually pretty decent models sitting around that I might be able to use. Morton made a whole bunch of missile models that, or even though they're not finished, I could just throw like a generic texture over top of. We could go with a NASA white, that would work. Put a couple checkered blocks on it. To be honest, if I get them exported and probably put into Blender, I could probably figure out how to UV map them. We could do legit textures for them. They won't look as good, but I've done worse when it comes to modeling and texturing. Hell, I got a trebuchet model sitting around here that I actually need to get around to finishing, but the software I used to use, which was called Animator, which is a really old piece of software. We're talking about like that thing was made in '98. Doesn't work on Windows 10 anymore. I can still load the models though, because I think they're importable by Blender. Okay. Hey, it actually did try to render that model. That worked. We're not getting any multi-blocks. That's not good. Definitely not good. So what we should see is we should see multi-blocks on these structures. And I'm not seeing anything. So what we need to do is... Oh, it looks like we're getting some kind of error. Do not return a structure map. Okay, so yeah, we're getting an error. So let's go ahead and put a break mark there. That's not... oh, there it goes. That's for the wrong tile. Actually, you know what? We're going to go ahead and have to clear some of these tiles out real quick. So let's go ahead. Yeah, I'm just going to break the bases off these. Since we want to test this guy, and then I'm going to go ahead and clear out these guys because these are also... They all use pretty much the same code. And that should be everything within range except for this thing. Get rid of that. And that should work. So we only have one guy sitting here trying to do rendering. And it is a form structure. So it should form on this side. And we'll put a line here and we'll see what it does. Okay, so it can't seem to find the directional map for that value. What is the layout key it's trying to use? ICBM micro launcher? That's not right. Content ID equals launcher.micro. I guess that makes sense. That's right, we would have multiple listeners. And is there not one for the medium? Oh, there it goes. Okay, so it's not finding one either. So it goes, okay, if map is null and directional offset. Did the directional offset not load? It's set to false. Okay. Let's go ahead and kill that off and figure out why that didn't load properly. Directional offset. So layout key, do rotation, build first tick. Oh, I know why it's not working. Okay. We would have to go put this into the listener, I think. So let me go ahead and find this key here. So yeah, that makes sense. So we'd come up to here and we'd mess with the listener. And then the medium would have these two values at the bottom. And then these guys would all have these at the bottom here. There we go. And we just need to clean out the values that were added here. Although having them in there doesn't really change anything. Pretty much the system ignores any value that isn't used. But so those were in the wrong spot, so if they're up here in the listener entries, then that should work to specify the listener correctly. At least, hopefully, that'll work. We'll probably have to do some more debug to check to make sure things are being registered correctly. But should function. Another thing I actually need to consider when making these multi-blocks down here is that a lot of this is reusable. So what I could do is I could go, okay, instead of putting the for loops in here, I could go, I want a 3x3x18 or something like that. And they would just simplify the code even more. But this was a good test for the repeat for loops. I just need to abstract that code even further out. And then I can start reusing that in other places. Because this is pretty cool when it comes to... Although most people probably aren't going to realize how cool that is to have a JSON data structure that can do for loops. But it is pretty awesome. Get some while loops thrown in there as well and it'd be even better. Although at this rate I'm basically making my own programming language without even realizing it. Should just throw some JavaScript in there, that would be even funner. think there actually is a guy who programs his mods in JavaScript, because Java does have a processor for it, and if you correlate enough of your stuff back and forth, it would work properly. I've even been considering doing it myself because of the fact that I want to try to get these mods as separated from Minecraft code as possible. That way I can then release these mods across multiple versions, which is something I've already been trying to do. Okay, still didn't get that directional offset, but that's for one of the auto tiles. That makes sense. Okay, there's a micro launcher, so that's not what we're looking for. Small launcher, standard launcher. By the way, the reason why we're seeing all the launcher types in here is the block specifies all those listeners, but they're just not used. So yeah, we did get our directional offset. We got a map for it, but it didn't work. Yeah, for some reason we got a null value to that, so this is going to crash in like probably 2 seconds. Yep, crashed. So it looks like the map is reading incorrectly. So we're going to go ahead and hit play. And then see if the game itself actually dies out of that. No, it didn't. Cool. So go ahead and hit save and quit then. And then we got to figure out why our multi-block structure isn't reading correctly. You know it's probably not reading correctly is it's this part right here. Because these are strings. It's probably not reading them in. We can go actually check to see if it does support strings. It's down here. Should be in part of the JSON conversion system. If JSON primitive, if primitive is number, and then we want to go else if primitive is string, then we can try to convert it. So double value equals double dot parse double primitive dot get string. And of course I'm going to put a try catcher on this. No, actually we don't need to put a try catcher on that. If it crashes, it crashes. Put that there. This is actually in the wrong spot now, I'm realizing it. But that's one way to handle it. Has object X, get as primitive, gets double. So this is the spot we need to fix. And the way we'll do it is just copy this piece. And then we want to grab offset object dot get as JSON primitive X. And then we want to go and set each of the values. Let's see, what is I got pinged with? Okay, so nothing important. So we got these values, so we just have to literally copy and paste this down. And what we're going to do is just change the values from what we set them to like what they're supposed to be. It's actually supposed to be a Y. You know, actually we can make this even more reusable. Private double get number. And we just go and pass in. Yeah, just do this way. That'll work. Grab this, put this down here, and then we're going to go else, throw, legal, argument exception, could not parse value. And we just like put primitive on that so it knows exactly what we're trying to, at least close enough to say what's wrong. Because this will get thrown to the super, and the super will actually catch the entire data structure and go, okay, the entire data structure is broken. And then we can just do with this, z equals get number, Put that around that. And I believe this needs to be static. Actually, we're going to go ahead and make this public because I guarantee somebody else is going to want to use that. And then we can just simplify our code even further. So get the x value, y value, and then y value. And that'll work. So that should fix the problem and should make that load. Okay. I'm getting pinged in a few different spots here. I don't know if that's a lot of the audio is actually showing up on the stream or not. I know OBS doesn't like to catch low volume sometimes. But we're almost done. Almost got the multi-blocks done. And then if this doesn't work after this, then I'm going to have to create a JUnit test for it, even though it's going to be really boring and even more boring than what we normally do. I bet most of the people that probably showed up to the stream, because I've had, I think I've had about 20 people come and go now, even though I kind of did throw this into one of the promotional channels with like 200 people, and so I guess that was expected. But not a lot of people have stuck around very long, and I think what most people think is when they come to an ICBM stream that I'm going to be blowing up missiles all the time. The reality of it is I think I only get to do that about 10% of the time I actually work on these mods. The other 90% is spent making backend code. Given that's partially my fault because I love to do the backend on this, and I like building really solid foundational code to work off of. A lot of mod developers don't do that. They just throw code together really quickly and they try to get as much content out the door as fast as possible. That's usually when you go and you'll watch another stream, you'll see a different ratio. You'll see like 60-40. You may even see like 10-80 or like 20-80, so like 20% coding, 80% gameplay. And with me, my code, you're going to see 90% code, 10% gameplay. Well, that ratio breaks down a little bit better though, because technically there's some debug involved, so I guess it's not entirely coding. I bet somebody could do the ratio off of watching my YouTube videos and figure out how much time I actually... Oh, well, I just crashed the game. Ticking exception, null point exception. So we still got null values being passed in. So we're going to go if entry.get key doesn't equal null. I've had to do this before, so it's not something new. But it does tell me there's something wrong with maybe the processor. Okay, convert. So we're just going to put a break line here so I can make sure things are running properly. Hit rebuild project 2 on that. What is... So there's an error somewhere here. But we'll just put a break line there and I'm going to see where the processor is failing to do its thing. Probably it's failing to do replace values is what's happening. That means we probably should watch this thing go through the entire cycle. Right there. And if this doesn't work, then I'm going to have to make a JUnit test to make sure this code is actually functioning. Probably need to spend some more time abstracting the code. I mean, it's probably going to be another week before I get this fully done. It's one of the depressing parts about working on mods like this, is you spend a huge amount of time just trying to test. Actually, it's not even mod development. Software development in general is that way. There's been projects I've worked on where I've spent more time unit testing than I have writing code. So you like write something that, I mean, I had this project where I did a simple file transfer. So you transferred files between two computers. And I wrote the program in pretty much a couple days, but then it took me like 3 weeks to test it all. So get it set up so it was 100% automated testing and various other things. And there we go. I actually finished building, so we can hit run and debug again. But yeah, so it took forever to get it tested all the way out because the client wanted like a 60% test ratio, I think I got it to a 64% before I'm just like calling it quits. I was trying to shoot for 100 because it's not often that I get a client that asks for JUnit. And I try to make really good impressions with my JUnit skills because, well, that's about the only place you're going to get a good impression from. Modding, nobody cares about JUnit. Yeah, nobody really cares about a lot of like actual industry tools in modding, but that's understandable because modding is a hobby. It is a little depressing though some days because some of these tools and techniques are amazing. Like analytics, for example. There was a few people on the channel that were complaining about analytics. Given their complaint was valid, one of the mods they caught with doing analytics was collecting information it shouldn't have been collecting. And to be honest, I don't think that was the mod developer's fault. They were using a library for game analytics, and the library for game analytics automatically collected certain things like what is your Facebook account, are you on ISO or you're on Android. And these are things that don't validate for Java version of Minecraft, but of course would validate if I was, say, for example, making a Unity game, which then would have actually had an Android version, ISO version, and everything else. So we're in our for loop. Yeah, we're good. So yeah, we got our key correctly. Everything's validating. Okay, we don't have a multi-block. We do have a for loop. Okay. And our map should have been populated. Yep, okay. So we go down, recycle over again. So now we know the for loop is at least initializing correctly. So now we want to make sure that this part is being done. So we get our multi-block, which is in Gods. Yeah, so it's got all the values here. Create an object, and then we want to replace the values. So go into the replacement, loop through, if JSON primitive, if JSON object, then we want to replace the values again. And there we go. So there's our X value, and it does find percents in there. And then what we should see, yeah, our S is now set to -1. There we go. So it is running properly. So we are getting a replacement key. So now the next part is to see if the crate pause is working, which it should be working. So I'm pretty sure some of the other multi-blocks are functional. Pause equals null. Oh, I see what's up. We passed in the wrong object at some point. So right here, we should be passing in state. So that's our template, which is multi-block. So then we pass in state, which is the contents of the multi-block. So if we pass it down to here, then it goes, okay, object.getPause. I think we need to run an ensure content down here. And then make sure that we actually do have a pause object. There we go, and then I'm going to reload this, and I'm going to kill it, and then I'm going to relaunch. And that should fix it. This is the reason why JUnit testing would have been really important. I may come back here later when I don't have a ton of work to do and test this to make sure it always functions. Especially when I go to update the 1.8, I probably am going to have to make JUnit testing for this because during the update, for probably a while, I'll only be able to test sections of the code at a time. I won't be able to test the entire mod until I get it fully functioning again, which is a lot when you think about it, because the transition from 1.6 to 1.7 for ICBM took me a year to do. It didn't actually take me a year of full-time work because I was only spending like, I think 5 hours a week or something like that. I took way too much work during my college semesters and didn't get enough done. I didn't even get any work really done on it until I hit that one summer, and then I spent most of the summer working on it. and then eventually got enough content done on it. But we're still not to a point where we actually have enough content. Okay, so this should function. Oh, no, we crashed. Number format exception. Something didn't validate correctly. Why didn't that work properly? Okay. Oh. That sort of makes sense. I think I need to move the for loop up one. Yeah, I need to move this up. It's in the wrong spot. Because we do loop validates we're actually kind of using this as pretty much like a temporary memory. Okay, just wanted to kind of get everything cleaned up there. That way the code's a lot easier to read. And that should work this time around. I know I've been saying that a lot, but about all you can say when you're working on programming is like, it should work, and then if it does, you're happy, and if it doesn't, at least you're one step closer. That's kind of a programmer's mentality to look at it. There's no way to actually fail. If you fail, you didn't actually fail, you just walked one step closer to the finish line. Even if it took 5 steps backwards at the same time. Ugh. Just kind of let this tick forward. So I'm probably actually going to start doing, by the way, once we get all this done, is I'm going to start doing votes on what content you guys actually want to see when I stream and do videos here. Most likely it's just going to be ICBM, but I'm going to start opening that possibility up. That way at least 1 or 2 of the videos I do a week is content that you guys prefer to see, and not just busy work. Alright, so no crashes. That's looking good. Get loaded in and see if we made it work. Okay. Well, it's working for the wrong tile. So our multi-block structure is working. You can actually see it here, except it's the wrong tile. That's awesome. It looks like our rotation code is working though, so we are actually getting a rotated structure. So that's awesome by itself. That's going to save me so much goddamn work. There's times I've spent like hours just working on the multi-blocks for other mods just to get them rotated properly. And this is, it's rotating for us. Although now we got to figure out why all the multi-blocks got applied at the same time. So that's probably part of the listener I got to toy with some more. Should be a check in here somewhere. You know what? I built up the checks and then I didn't implement them. So that was something we did yesterday and I kind of forgot. Because the is valid for tile is not implemented yet. And that's the reason why it's not working. And the way we actually are going to implement this is I have a method down here somewhere, down in the prefabs, I believe, that actually is what loops through all the listeners and applies them. And then right in there, we'll just go ahead and we'll exclude the system. If I can remember where it's at. You know, the faster way to find this would be for me to just go up to the frameworks and then pop into the blocks class and then go grab block base, scroll down to the first listener, and then grab it here. So it's an iterator system. So if it's valid, has next. Size equals 2. So we want to go with peak. So how does this work? It's been a while since I've toyed with this code. So when we go has next, we figure out how many values we have. Then we loop through. So all we gotta do is come down to the peak code apparently, get code maybe. So go with index, and then we put re down here. And what we want to do is go with re doesn't equal null, and re dot is valid for tile. Return re, not return null. This should work. It means I'm going to have to move my inject code here. So that means like when we actually get the next object, we're going to have to call eject. Oh, did it fail to copy? I hate when you hit that. Sometimes when you hit Control X to cut, it doesn't actually do it. It may be just a mishit on the key. But yeah, we'll inject the location here. Okay, that'll work. And hopefully that won't have any negative repercussions by me changing the inject location. I don't think it will, because these are pretty linear. You kind of inject it and you use it almost immediately as soon as you inject the location. So we shouldn't have a problem where there's just stagnant data left over. If there is, I can always eject it down here and then inject back in again. Considering its inject is called every time it's run, it should be fine. That should work. Okay. So run this again and see if it does its job. If this doesn't work, the alternative approach we can pull off is we can switch over the multi-block from a block listener to a tile listener, and then apply it to the tile entities rather than applying it to the block. And that way it activates per tile. It feels a little wasteful to do it that way because I kind of like how the block listener works, so that way you only have one listener per block rather than having one listener per tile, because when you think about it that way, that means I can have 100,000 tile entities, but I still only have one listener. But if you switch over to the tile version, then if you have 100,000 entities, you have 100,000 listeners as well. And that consumes RAM. It may only be a couple bytes at a time, but a couple bytes actually ends up turning into quite a bit of RAM after a while. it's one of those compound things, like, you know how you save up pennies and eventually you get some money out of it? RAM works the same way. You save up a couple bytes at a time and then it turns into megabytes, megabytes turns into gigabytes. There's been people's servers I've worked on and made patches for that I've shaved off multiple gigabytes off their server by just going in and doing very simple things like shaving out cache data. I think Applied Energistics, one of their versions had a really horrible cache problem that I shaved out. I know Thaumcraft has an issue with its cache, but its cache was actually an iterative problem, not a memory issue. Advanced Rocketry had a problem with it for a while, although they fixed theirs mostly. I know Z-Master's still working on it, trying to get it optimized down. The problems he's suffering with his is the same problems I'm going to have with mine, most likely. Okay, I'm going to break this, and this is probably going to break the whole thing. Okay, yeah. Null point exception, all multi-block broken. Interesting. That's a new one. I haven't had the layout null point on me before. I pause 3D string map equals that if map decimal. Actually, you know what? We can merge these two together. Okay, so that'll prevent that from null pointing, but now we have to figure out why null pointing originally, because the layout should never return null. Weird. So get multi-block layout, do rotation, so that looks fine. Get layout of multi-block down here, which is what we called. I think we're just going to have to put an else statement here. I'm going to do like some system out, print line. Put that there, and then we'll put like if engine.running is dev mode. Go ahead and debug, and then figure out what's up. We're getting there though. This multi-block code is finicky. Especially the way we're trying to implement it. We're doing a JSON multi-block system to take away a lot of the work. Not only does it take away a lot of the work, if somebody really wants to, they can change all the information about the launchers, make them look however they want, behave however they want, make their own launchers, and doing that all via JSON, by the way, which is pretty cool. Although you do need some code for it to function. It's not entirely uncode based, and I'm not just meaning some code as in you would still need code to do the loading of the JSON. I'm talking about like in order to launch a missile, you're going to have code for that. Although there are prefabs, so I guess I could convert that to even more abstraction. That way you can make anything launch a missile, which would be kind of nice. I already plan to make some entities do that, which was going to be really cool. And I want to revise. I had this really old mod I made back in like 1.2.5 where you had a creeper that its top half could launch off like a missile and fire at you. That was actually a pretty fun mod. It was built as an add-on for ICBM, but never really got approved. Because that was back when I had to run everything through Calcalavia, and Calcalavia had this weird branding image that he liked to maintain. I mean, we're making Minecraft mods. Branding is not something that actually works well. So let's see. Oh, I saw the missile render there again. I wonder what's up with the render. Okay, so it's returning null again. I wonder if it's just a client-side thing. No, it's multiplayer because it's got entity player MP there. So tile multi. Yeah, we have a host. So there's our host. There's our node. Trying to find the forge direction cache real quick. There it is. So we're facing west. So that's appropriate. So let's put a map up here. We got. I mean, it did return null, so it's not like it's messing up here. Oh, but apparently my dog wants to go outside for a walk. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here because I mean we've been doing this for an hour and a half, and I'll just get back to this another day. Unfortunately, we didn't get everything working, but we did get pretty far.